What's up guys, Eli here from Emanation Fix, and we're back in Blender for a hopefully quick tutorial. I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can. This is just for a friend of mine who's been kind of interested in getting started with character renders and stuff like that for personal projects. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of different Minecraft rigs that are out there, pretty popular rigs. At least in my opinion, and one of which I have actually yet to fiddle around with, but looks like it would be really useful for a lot of things, especially little animations because of the way that it's set up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the rigs into the scene, and you would think that all you would do is just open up the file for the rig. Well, you can do that, but it's usually better to bring them into a new scene, because then you can save that scene if you modify the rig and get it looking all right with the proper skin and everything, and you want to be able to save that. You can do it in a separate file, that way you don't ruin the original rig. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the top and make sure that we're in cycles render. Most of the rigs, I moved my cursor, just cursor center, you hit Shift S to bring that in. You can see the keys that I pressed down here in the bottom left, and the cursor just tells the program where things are going to be added into the scene. So cycles render has a completely different material setup and lighting system than the internal render does, Blender render. And don't even get me started on Blender game. I almost never use that except for when I'm rigging bows, which surprisingly it's really useful for. But from that point, we're going to make sure your settings are going to be completely different from mine, but make sure you have things the way that you want them. I actually put most of my renders these days at 1080 by 1080, and I bumped, this is the scale for the render, so it would have that. And then you can come down here to samples, and my render samples are at 150. I could actually lower this down a lot because of a new feature in Blender 2.79, or actually I think it's just 2.7, where if you come over to this render layers tab and come down to denoising, if you check this will make it so that your renders are less noisy and pixelated. It's really useful, so keep that in mind. And I'm just gonna scroll over some of my other things. Another thing that we can do is we can click transparency in the film section of the render tab, and this will make it so that the background is completely blank, transparent even, so you can overlay your character on other things without having to edit out that pesky background. I'll open up my performance tab so you can see the stuff that I use for rendering, and you can pause the video if you need to see that more, as well as post-processing. Light paths, I think these are default. There are a couple of people who recommend changing these. So far I haven't needed to change them for any kind of performance reasons. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. So we've got that now. I'm going to turn on my cooling fan for my computer. And we're going to get the first rig into the scene. Now this rig is from Black Plasma Studios. So we're going to go to desktop, we're going to go to Minecraft rigs, Black Plasma Studios. I use the basic one, but there are other versions as well. The light one has very few features in it. Very useful for you creating background characters, so less geometry and stuff like that to slow down your system. And the armored one has setups so that you could put iron armor, diamond armor, leather armor with colors into your scene. But we're just going to go with the basic one. We're going to go to object, and these are all the objects that are in that scene. Now, so very important before we do anything else, come down over here to the append from library section and uncheck localize all. It'll be clear later. And then all you have to do is hover your mouse over the area where all these objects are and hit A to select them all. Come up here and append from library, and this will bring the rig into your scene. If you hit the numpad period button, you'll be able to zoom in on this system. And right now I am in the solid view of the scene, so if we go ahead and change that to material view, you can see that we now have a character with the Minecraft Steve skin. Now, to be able to change this into a system where we can actually pose the character, we need to click on the rig. You right click in Blender to select things, hit Control Tab, and we go into pose mode. Now, something that I found is extremely confusing with this is you see all these dotted lines. These are relationship lines. What that means is that these are showing you what things are parented to. So like if I move this, it moves the mouth around, but it's parented to something that's hidden up here so that all of this will follow the head. So if I rotate the head, you can see all the controls are following the head. We can easily hide all that. We don't need to see these relationship lines. All you have to do is press N to bring up this tab here. You need to scroll down to display and just uncheck relationship lines. Now, it's usually a good idea to leave outlines selected on so that you can see what you're selecting. That's just food for thought there. Now, middle click allows you to rotate around. If you shift middle click, you can move side to side. Scroll wheel zooms in and out, or you can hit shift middle click, or wait, is it control? Yeah, control middle click to have finer control over that. And while you're doing that, I thought you could press shift to kind of slow it down a little bit, but apparently you can't, but that's alright. So this is the very, very basic rig, and you can see that it's got 3D eyes and a mouth. Really cool. This slider, you can actually just bring it back over there. That restricts the selection of the actual model. So you can see I just selected the jacket layer, is what I call it. I think it's what it's called on the model. And this is useful for when you want to do extrusions, which we will get into later. The extrusion system for all of these rigs is pretty much the same, except for one that I have yet to fiddle with, which we'll get to later. So now we don't want to mess with Steve. Well, we might want to mess with Steve, but we don't want to do that for this particular version. So the way to change the skin on this particular rig, the Black Plasma Studios rig, is you got to click on this little guy right here. Now we need to come over, and you can use your scroll wheel to move these tabs around until we find this one right here, which is the Materials tab. You'll see all of this confusing info right here, all of these little things. So all you got to worry about is this right here. If you hit X, Steve will disappear, and you'll get the option to open. Now I'm going to go to my Downloads tab, and I'm going to find my personal skin, which is set up and ready to go for renders, which is right here. And now we got a new skin on the guy, and it's me. Now I'm going to show you a little thing that I do with skins. If we bring this little, there's a little crosshatch here. If you click it and move it in either direction, you will split your screen. Now if we click here and go to UV Image Editor, click this button here and go to the skinned file, you're going to notice something interesting about the face. I have actually copied the face up into the top left corner. Now this corner is not used by the skin at all, so don't worry about anything being here. A lot of people use it to put a color palette here so that they can reference it, and later on if they ever want to change anything. I use it to make a copy of the face. And then what I do is I fill in that face so that it doesn't have eyes, eyebrows, or a mouth. This is really useful because if you actually look at the character, he's got these 3D eyes, and if you were to move these eyes around, if the character's eyes on the normal skin were still there, they would be appearing when you move those eyes around, which would look really, really weird. Another useful thing about having the face copied and in this top corner is if we go back and click on this guy, you'll see that there's all kinds of different options here. If we click on eyes, we can actually click this color spot here, click the color picker, and easily give him the proper colored eyes. Now you can also do this with the eye whites, which my guy has a slightly light blue eye there, which makes it a lot better. And you can also do the same thing with the eyebrows. So if your character had eyebrows, you could match the color there. And it's just really useful system to have. And now to merge these two screens again, you just click on the hatch again and drag it up, and bam. Posing the character. It's really, really simple. You click on the rig, you get all these different little colors. Now, the way that the rig is set up on default is you need to move these yourself. The arms need to be moved by themselves. This part of the arm is limited to rotating only in this direction, as you can see, which is pretty handy actually, because that's really all the motion that you need on that lower part of the arm. But the upper part of the arm kind of stuck with just posing it regularly. There's a way that I have found to make it a little easier to control the arms, but if you're controlling it this way, one thing that you can do to easily restrict your selections is if you hit R for rotate, you could hit X, and that will lock the rotation on the X axis, or you can lock it on the Y axis or the Z axis, and you can get some really fine controls there. Now, the rest of the interesting thing about this is that the feet are set up for what's called IK controls, and what that means is if you click on this bone here, which is the lower body, and you hit G for grab and move it around, you'll notice that the legs move on their own. Really, really cool, and it's really useful for animators. These little foot controls are down here, control where the foot goes, and you'll see that it actually controls where the leg goes as well. So if we bring this down a little bit so that he's kind of kneeling down or squatting down, move the leg out, and you can rotate that bottom bone, you'll see that the knee will move as well, which is really, really handy. And we hit Alt G, Alt R, no wait, A to select everything, Alt G, Alt R, resets rotation. There's all kinds of other features to this as well. You can, right here, this is an Alex model. And you see my skin is not set up for this, but you can easily do the 3 wide arms. The anti-lag just means so that when you're controlling the mouth, you'll see that it has this really nice curve to the mouth. But if you were to turn on anti-lag, it's got a very sharp bend to it. So that's something to keep in mind there. Mouth control just allows you to move the mouth around after you've given him like a smile or something. This is the teeth. If you were to drag, I think I need to open the mouth more. I'm trying to remember how that works. You're gonna have to fiddle with that one around on your own. I'm trying to keep this short, but we're already running long on just the first rig itself. Now, if you have a character that has like a helmet on, or is like a robot or something that you don't want to control the facial controls on, don't want all this 3D stuff, or you're just using it for like a thumbnail or something, you can click on this option here, hit G and drag it up, and all of the facial controls will disappear. This is really useful if you just want like a background character with just a normal face. You don't want to deal with all of this extra stuff. It's really useful for that. And you could also turn the mouth off and just keep the eyes. So this is useful if your character has a mask or a scarf or something along those lines. And you can also hide all of these controls after you've posed the face the way that you want to, which is useful for when you're trying to animate the rest of the character. Now, I was talking about the hand controls, and the way that I find that's easier to control them and a little bit more natural is by selecting these two here with shift right click. Hit G and drag them up. You'll see that there's a new little bone down here, which is a little circle, but if you drag this up, it's like the foot control. This is just really simple way to more naturally pose the hand. And that is the BPS rig. I'm going to hit Control Tab to put this back into object mode, and we're going to drag it off to the side, and we're going to bring in another rig. This one's going to end up being, I think, a bit bigger than that one. So we're going to append. We're going to go back up, up, and we're back into this scene here. We're going to do the Pixel Perfect 1.5 rig. And we're going to do the same thing for bringing everything in. Append from library, and yeah, he's a bit bigger. There is a lot going on with this rig. You see that there's a lot of different controls and things like that. But we're just going to quickly go over how to get the skin onto this particular rig. So we're going to go, I'm going to click on this head up here, this floating head, and then we're already in the material tab, and then you just click on the X, and then if you want to import a new skin, you would hit open, or if you already have a skin in your scene like I do, you can hit this little drop down menu and then go to the skin of your choice. Now you'll notice that the face didn't change, and there's a reason for that. It uses a different material file. So we're going to right click, right click, right click. We're just going to keep right clicking until we see this. You've got the head selected, and you can see face deformations here on the side. You'll see this image texture one. If you click on the little plus icon there, you'll see that it's still on the pixel perfect skin there. If we go to our skin, it'll change it. Now it is a little annoying having to worry about not having that little guy there with all the different things set up there for it. So if you want to change the eye colors and the eyebrow colors, you have to go through the whole process of clicking on it and just keep clicking through the different models until you get the thing that you want. But it does eventually allow you to select the right things. We're not going to go through all of that with this one. I am going to explain this head really quick. This is very useful if you want to have extrusions on your character. I'm going to go over that really quick right now. We're going to go ahead and do what we did earlier and bring up the UV image editor, and we're going to go to the skin. Now what we need to do here is we need to hit tab, and you'll see that this entire thing comes up. If we hit A, you'll see that all of these little squares correspond to a pixel on the head. Now these pixels are slightly unique because they're not touching each other like they are here. That makes it extremely easy to extrude this. Now I'm going to go down here and go to face select mode. You'll see that all these little dots have appeared. If I hit A, we need to click this button here to make it so that it syncs up the way that we want. And you'll see that they've all now appeared here as well. You know, if I hit A, you'll see that they are still there. And this is useful for seeing what you're selecting. If I hit C, I'll bring up this selection system here. This is a paint select. I'm going to just select all of these pixels on the side of the head. You can scroll wheel to increase or decrease the size of your selector. Now with these selected, I'm going to hit E and X, and I'm going to pull those out a little bit, and you can see that they're now extruded, which is really cool. You can get a lot of really cool details into your model this way, and everything on the model can be done this way. Although some parts of the model do not have that special system set up there yet. So like this arm here, if I do that and I come up and hover over the picture and hit the period key like we did with the other rig to zoom in on it, we will zoom in on the area where the arm is, and you'll see that these ones, all the lines are selected. This is actually slightly annoying when you're trying to do extrusions because you can get the wrong colors on the sides of your model. Now the way to solve this is we have to, in the model view, we hit Control E and we come down to edge split. Now we have to come back up here, click on this button here and go to individual origins. It's right next to the view. And then what we can do is we can hit S to scale and we bring it in, and you'll see that all those squares suddenly are smaller. And this is perfect because what that means is all the edges are inside of the pixel that they're corresponding to. So if we then choose something and extrude it, it will have that color on the side. If you didn't do that and you had a transparent section next to the item that you're extruding, that would be transparent as well and would look really strange. So that's how you do that, and you can use that system for any part of the model, although you will have to do some trial and error to get it to work just right. Now this one also has IK controls, although you want to come up here, you hit Control Tab to go into pose mode. I'm going to move this, which is restricting selection, so I don't accidentally select the model anymore. And I'm going to bring this slider down to the bottom. All right, so this is where most of the controls for the character are. We've got head rotation, which means that when we rotate the body, it will no longer follow the body. If we bring that back down and we rotate the body again, it will inherit that rotation, which is something to keep in mind. IK controls, again, I have these two turned on. If you were to turn those off and move these, oh, it still works. If I do that, it still works, huh? Not sure what's going on there. Those are stretches. Oh, right arm IK. So if I were to turn that off, it'll follow the ball, but now all it's doing is stretching and kind of squashing. So if I turn those two back on, they will actually follow, and they still stretch, but they follow just like with the other rig. They follow that orb. And then you have your eye controls for controlling the pupils. These are the eyebrow controls, so you can give him expressions. All of these controls on the other rig are more on the actual face itself. So again, trial and error. Trying to keep this short again. So here is mouth controls, and you can see this one has teeth. And you can go for a round mouth or a square mouth. And you can... Now the teeth, I don't think have a special control. If we move this up to custom, we can actually start getting some of these special features for this rig. You have the Alex model, if you wanted that. You can do smooth bend. What this does is if you move the arm, you'll see that he has a rounded edge, and if we were to turn on or turn off anti-lag, you'll see that he's got that as well. Now you'll notice that this gave this whole section over here circles for the arm, and I'm going to turn on the selection system again. If I were to select that, you'll see everything has become all rounded out, and that's because of a modifier over here called subsurface modifier. Now I think a way to get around this is to, if I go into tab and hit A, if we up the creases, that should fix it, I believe. I do believe it has. Yes, okay. So if we were to move that, yeah, you still get the bend, although everything is kind of a little bit wonky in certain positions, unlike on this side. But if you're doing extrusions, that's a sacrifice you'll have to make. You'll just have to deal with certain things being limited like that. I'm going to select both of these, hit Alt-G to reposition them. So that's something to keep in mind there. So that's the smooth bend toggle. I'm going to turn off anti-lag and restrict select. Now you also have, on this one, you have a female version. And this is going to look really weird on me, but you can give your character a little bit more of a feminine figure, including for the legs. It modifies the legs slightly. That's something you can do there. Now you can also, once again with this one, you can do it with no face. And something I forgot to mention, if you go back over here to this, you can, let's see, okay, so this controller here, face controller position, if you were to bring that all the way up, you'll notice that all the controls for the face line up with what they are actually controlling. So instead of having to deal with them being up here, you can move them, or you can leave them up there. I'm going to set that back to normal, and we're going to go back to custom. I'm a little all over the place with this, sorry. I didn't have this planned out. It was just something that I decided to do for a friend of mine. Now this one is very unique in that it has finger controls, and we can turn that on here. You'll see that it added in these controls on the hands. A little easier to see with the blue. And another thing that this has is this thumb fill. If I turn that on and I go around to the back, you'll see that there is a pixel or two missing here on the hand. A little difficult to see. If I turn on, if I go to shading and turn on ambient occlusion, if I go here and turn it on, no, okay. I thought I might be able to get it a little bit brighter in there, but apparently not. But what this allows you to do is you now have finger controls. Now they are a little bit limited. You can't really rotate them out, but you can give your character much finer control over like holding items and things like that. There we go, Alt G. So that's very useful there, having hands on your characters to hold items, point things out, wave at people, really, really cool. Eye sparkles, if you have a female character, this is very useful, or a very young character, you can give them sparkles on the eyes, which is really, really cool. You can give them a nose, which is very similar to, if I hide this layer, you can see it better. There we go. This is very similar to the Minecraft story mode, having that character nose there. I find it kind of awkward. Female eyebrows. What this does is it adds an extra pixel to the eyebrow, which makes it look a lot more feminine. If I were to... Okay, so this is eyebrow scale. If I were to... Okay, so this allows you to locate the eye. Oh, hello. What I'm trying to do... There we go. Okay, so if you rotate this control here, you can get 2 pixel high eyes. This is something that I forgot to show over here. You can do pretty much the same thing by clicking on this one here, S to scale, Z for up and down, and you can scale the eyes up. And then if you drag them down, you can position them where you want to and have a much more female-like character. Doesn't really work for that skin. But yeah, that's a way that you can get that. And then if you were to go to here, you can hit S to scale, Z to scale up, and you can get those female eyes there as well. And we can click this and we can drag the mouth lower, and it makes it much easier to give your characters that more feminine appearance. If I were to use a different skin on this, actually, let's see, I should have another skin that I can use. If we go to documents, maybe I might skip this part of the video while I look for this skin. It might still be in downloads. Yes. Okay. Now I need to... Forgot the facial controls. There it is. And this is what I meant about the eyes. So you can see that the eyes are still on this character. But if I were to take this down... Can I get this to work? This is something that I've always struggled with this particular rig. Yeah, see, once you go past a certain point, you start getting deformations on the skin, which is not very good. Can I? No, I can't pull them out that way. But this is how you would do it, and you can do the similar thing on the other rig as well. I just don't know how to solve that part. But if you have it about there, and you cleared out the face for the skin, like I was talking about earlier with this skin here, you wouldn't have to worry about that as much, and you can see that it's a much more feminine character. I'm pretty sure I have that. Let me go ahead and pause the video and see if I can fix this. Alright guys, so I ended up going with a different character skin. This is the character skin for Foxy Monoxide. The previous skin was for my friend Psycholet, so shout out to both of them. And you'll see that the eyes are completely different. So if we go to Foxy's skin here, she's got this really light blue and we can easily just change that, bam, like that. So if I were to bring these particular eyes down, I want to see if giving this the square mouth will fix anything. Kind of. If I go to render view, yeah, it still shows up. So I don't really know how to fix that part for this particular rig, but that's how you give them the too high eyes. So there's that there. Trying to, there, okay. Okay, it's still showing up a little bit. It needs to go higher. There we go, okay. So that does look a little odd. I apologize. If I bring this controller back up, say to there, and I bring the mouth over, that's a little better. But yeah, that's how you get the more female style eyes, and you can have the eye sparkles be on there as well. So if I were to turn the eye sparkles off, you'll see it's a lot different, and you can give your character a unibrow. If you're using like a villager skin or something, that's very useful for that. And then you can see here on a more female skin that the, oh, I need to bring that head layer back. There we go. Much better. So you can see this gives her a much more feminine look to her entire model, and that is that particular rig. There's a lot more to go over with it, but I am going really long here. This is now 30 minutes long, and I don't really plan to edit anything. So we're going to move that over there, and we're going to take a look at the last rig, which I have not fiddled with. We'll go ahead and leave that there. We're going to append, go up to here, and we're going to go to the Zamination rig. This one I do not even know if it will append properly. Holy moly, there are a lot of extra objects here. Jeez. Okay, so if you ever get a rig that has all these extra objects and things like this, you can easily just select them all. I'm using the paint select option, and these are just all kinds of spare objects that were used to create the custom shapes for the rig. So if I just select all of this, hit X to delete it all. There's a couple that are still left over. Just grab these. Don't need them. I think I still got one up here. If I were to, yeah, delete that. Alright. We should be good to go. Yeah, okay. So, if I move that, nothing follows. Okay, cool. So with this one, control tab, and it looks like we have a lot of interesting controls here. Okay, so foot control for forward and backward, that's great for toes. You got the whole foot. If I rotate that, also has very similar function. This offset, I'm not sure what the offset does. This is torque control. Give your character a little bit of a torque. Arm control. Arm control. Restrict select, so you can't select the model. And for this one, how are we going to change? Aha, right here. So we can easily change this to being my character. Not sure. Okay, so the hat layer here is a lot bigger on this character. Okay, so this character is definitely for doing extrusions and things on, by the look of it. How am I going to select that? I'm trying to select the hat layer here, but it's not letting me. Keep selecting the bone. Let's go to this. Oop. body hat. What is this? Oh, okay. It's just a lattice work. So is that this one? Yes. In this one, I need that. Okay, so it's set to not be selected. Okay. So if I were to select it, bam, there we go. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could scale that down a bit so that it's more normal. But what this allows you to do, whoops, is if I were to go to my character skin, and you can see if you're using multiple skins just how cluttered this can get really quick. If I hit tab and hit A, okay, so this is already set up. See all those dots? Those are the pixels. If I were to take that, go to this tab here, which is the little wrench, hit add modifier and solidify, and I drag this up and deselect, you can see that the character now has those 3D extrusions on it. This is for extremely cartoonish characters, I think, which my friend will probably really appreciate. So if I remove that, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to drag that over a little bit. This seems to have very similar controls. So these are more controls. So this is mouth position. This is the mouth control itself for controlling talking. I'm not sure what that is for. These are for smiling and such. This here, emotion. Look at the eye. While I move that, you can see that he's sad, angry. That's pretty cool. Blink control. This is something the other rigs don't have. You have to do this manually. And once again with the emotion, and this is controlling the location of the eyes. Here you can give them the Alex arms if you wanted. I'm not sure how you would control the outer layer for that one. Okay. Eyebrow control. Looks like on this one the eyebrows are actually set up for the hair layer, which is pretty cool. Not sure why that's labeled as blink control, but that controls the thickness of the eyebrows. We got even more controls. So if you wanted to individually control the eyes, like such, you can control the middle of the mouth there. This rig is pretty, and you can really squash your character. Now this one has wrist controls, as does this one. This extra arrow on here controls wrist movement. This one, however, I do not think has finger controls. That would be one of the major downsides of this rig. So what is this? Okay, so this, you can easily control the extra stuff for the eyebrows. This rig is pretty darn cool. Alright, so if I were to do extrusions on this, you can see I can select, let's do the belt here in the front. If I hit E, and I bring that out a little bit, that's a lot, let's bring it out a little bit, you'll see that it's very, very pixelated there. If I select everything, go to N, scroll back up, mean crease up, you get that nice sharp edge. So that's how you would do extrusions on this rig, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to be having a lot of fun with this later on. This video is now 40 minutes long. So I hope this tutorial helps out my friend and anybody else interested in any of these rigs. So these rigs, I will try to include links to the videos for these down in the description below. You've got the Black Plasma Studios rig, you got the Pixel Frosty rig, and you've got the Zamination rig. pretty cool stuff, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.